All right, we are back again, episode number 83. Very grateful to say that as always. If you are new here, this podcast, Adventures in Adversity, really is a collection of stories from real people who share their journey about how they are turning life's adversity into an adventure and really just trying to spread the stories that give people encouragement and hope with what they're going through. So with that, episode 83, grateful to be here. I would love to welcome my guest, George Ackerman. Thank you for being here.
I really appreciate your time, Brianne, and thank your audience. It's really important to really see what you're doing, but also change the world for the better for so many.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you now, I'm going to read a little bit about you, George, and then I'm going to hand it over to you to start sharing your story. You are an advocate. I'm looking at your page here, your link tree. You're all about Parkinson's disease awareness and beautiful in memory of your mother. And your mission is really to voice awareness and hope for a cure for Parkinson's. And incredible cause, and I know it comes from your story, which you're going to share. So again, please check the show notes as you're watching this. After you watch this, I'm going to put all the links, George, to all of your wonderful resources here. We've got your book, which we'll talk about, your YouTube channel, your podcast, Together for Sharon, all of the places where they can learn more about you and your cause.
Thank you.
So yeah. So George, we got connected through Instagram, I believe,
Mhm.
through some of our content. And I when we started chatting, I started looking at what you were doing, and again, I'm just really inspired by how open you are about your journey caring for your mom with Parkinson's. And if you don't mind, wherever you'd like to start, kind of take us back to where this sort of all began.
Yeah, I never dreamt I'd be a caregiver, let alone at the age I was, or even an advocate. Never even heard much about Parkinson's disease. Unfortunately, lost my mother on 1/1/2020 due to Parkinson's, and it changed my life and our family forever. She was only 69, and to me, that's a baby these days. Like with the
Yes.
technology, people are living much, much, much longer lives. Unfortunately, she, had this or was diagnosed. We don't know if she had it for 18 years longer or even shorter. I'm not sure if she just wasn't sure, about the disease or she didn't want to burden the family. That's how she was. But before that, I was born in Brooklyn, New York, or Elizabethtown, New Jersey, but raised in Brooklyn, New York. And mother and father didn't really have much. And my mother was a school teacher and had a master's degree in psychology and gave it all up. Never even really could have done so much more to her potential, but to raise me and my brother. And that just showed sacrifice. And after that, we moved to South Florida. So that's where I am still today. And I'm not really thrilled because it's actually almost 20 degrees here. Cold. It's not, you say Florida, I understand New York, but not.
Yeah.
But so anyway, I decided to set my field and my life and to dedicate it to victims of crime. I was a victim in New York once of a crime, but growing up in Brooklyn, saw a lot of things. So I was literally raised in the world of the mafia and saw a lot of stuff that never really, talk about because it's so much more about Parkinson's that's more important.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
when I see people in anything in the world kind of don't have a voice, I try to speak up for them. So I became an attorney in Florida and Washington. And I don't like saying it but backwards, but in a way I did go from the law to the police field because as an attorney I worked at the prosecutor's office in my internship and noticed that you just don't have the time for the victims like I want to. You have so many cases. Kind of was discouraged, so I decided why not go into the field, maybe help victims. And then I noticed the same thing. You just have to hand a brochure and move on. There's just too many calls. So I had the honor, after being a police officer, I'm still today, but I'm a reserve. I did my PhD and became a professor of criminal justice. And the great thing for that was I had an opportunity to either go federal, but I decided I liked education because I
Hmm.
feel like you learn from the students. You might not be able to do everything, but now you can because you live through them and they really inspire me. But I was able to do my dissertation on aiding African American mothers who lost their loved ones due to murder in West Palm Beach, Florida. So I became very close with the group and the president, who unfortunately, due to crime, they lost their loved one. And what was fascinating is how these women were able to reintegrate themselves back into society through faith and community. Otherwise, they would never have been able to, and still they struggled. But again, abruptly, that all stopped when one night, for some reason, after my mother struggled, she was, lived independent. She lived alone. She loved living alone because your independence is very important. But all of a sudden, I'd say the fifth year, she started having stiffness in her left arm. And it wasn't so bad as she had to have extra attention, but we were worried. So 15 doctors, no one said to panic. They didn't say anything really, which is still, I don't think anything we could have done differently. And then I learned, what the word Parkinson was, but we still didn't know it was even a disease because she never really showed any bad symptoms. She decided, and I didn't have much to do with it, to go to do a trial for people with Parkinson's in a school that I don't blame, and the doctors I don't blame because it's a disease. But as we were speaking earlier, unfortunately at 4 a.m. I got a call when she came home from the trial. I don't know if I think for trials, and I'm not a medical doctor, but should really require and force the patients to stay there for a week just to monitor them. Well, she didn't do that. I don't know if it's her own fault, but she came home that night because it was local. And I got a call from my father in New York to rush over to my mother's house at 4 a.m. Never did that in my whole entire life because there was no reason. And when I drove up, I kind of approached it like a police officer, and I'm like, what's going on? And she was moving her furniture out of her house, and she said she thought there were Nazis inside and they were going to harm her, and I didn't know what to do or say. I went in the house to make sure, obviously, because she's a very honest,
Yeah.
but there was nothing, and I decided to rush her to the hospital because I wasn't trained for that. Then we learned that was the first time we learned of delusions and hallucinations, and it was frightening. Not even that part, but the hospital said we saved her life, but it was never the same after that night. But I went back to get her some clothes, which I don't tell a lot of people, and it was almost like the movie, if you remember, Beautiful Mind. I walked in her
Yes.
bedroom. I went in her bedroom, which I never really go because it's pride. I have nothing to go in my mom.
Yeah.
But I walked in, and there were actually post-it notes like we used to keep reminders surrounding the room, and on the notes were people's names and animals that aren't alive. And she would write who's there and who's not, because I guess she was losing sense of reality. And honestly, that was more heartbreaking than anything.
Yeah.
So that was where my journey literally started as a caregiver for 4 years. And then today, 6 years later, still advocating. Obviously, we can't bring her back, but I didn't want her, number one, to be forgotten because of the disease. And number two, really kills me today and breaks my heart seeing other people still battling it. And that's why I do is we can't bring her back again, but we can ensure other families and people, number one, don't feel alone like we did, or have to go through this. And shockingly, we thought my mother and we thought she was the only one in the world who had Parkinson's because we didn't know anyone.
It's thank you for sharing all of that, and a couple things come to mind. First, I want to just express my condolences for your loss. Obviously, really, really, as I've been looking at all of the content you create, just seeing pictures of your mom, and just you can really tell that you guys were had a beautiful relationship. So first of that, and I also wanted to thank you for your time as a police officer and for the things that you're doing now and for the victim advocacy, both like you said before, with crime, as well as advocacy with Parkinson's disease, the people who are suffering from it, as well as their families, right, that are trying to take care of them. So, thank you for raising awareness to this. We were talking before we hit record that the things that get all the attention and the clicks tend to maybe not be the most wholesome at times or helpful. So we're hoping that messages like these and stories like yours can start to get some views so that people don't feel alone, right? Um, so take me through, George, when you, as a caretaker, if somebody listening maybe is at the beginning of that journey or is considering like, okay, I think it might be time for me to step in, or as a caretaker, what mindset did you have to have, kind of not having done that before?
Yeah, just a quick note, Parkinson's
Yep.
disease, unfortunately, is the fastest growing neurological disorder in the country. There's about 1 million people, probably more, affected, but that multiply that times the caregivers, the families is a lot more. Then there's 10 million people out of the U.S. who I also consider family battling it. And shockingly, I learned just recently that lead scientist, Dr. Boss Bloom, who I met with in New York City, at a Michael J. Fox function
Yeah.
every 20 minutes now. Today, someone's being diagnosed. And if you saw the research lately, unfortunately, I know a lot about this because I study it, but
Yeah.
we have they believe in just about 10 to 15 years, there's going to be almost 15 million people. It's going to go from 1 to 15 million in just a few years because I believe it's environmental. And there's a lot of
Yeah.
things that listeners can do to get involved. Contact your legislators. We just started a podcast, myself and my friend, who's the president of Power Over Parkinson's, Margaret Preston in Virginia. It's called the Parkinson Policy Podcast. It's the only one in the world, literally, in my opinion, and I've seen that's only focused on policy and how people can get involved. We've had legislators on. We're going to actually air the next month a former lead of the NIH, which was not, that took a year to get the NIH director on the show. So this is a huge thing to talk
Yes.
about. But, a lot of shows and things, even what I do, we can talk and talk, but now we can get people who can do something. So it only takes a
Yeah.
minute to call your legislators. They need to ban also something called paraquat, which is a poison used in Roundup, and a lot of the landscaping companies. It's banned in every country except U.S. and China and Australia. Sorry, it's even banned in China. Now,
Man.
that's just a little start. Also, unfortunately, the new government, they've cut a lot of funding, but the problem is they also cut for Parkinson's research, so that's a big problem. So I had the honor to be selected by the Michael J. Fox Foundation. I went to the Capitol last March. They've asked me to return, so I guess I did okay. This
Hey.
March, I'll be heading back to Congress to try to raise awareness for all these things, but we can't do this alone. Every listener
No.
you have can just pick up a phone, send an email, or even a social media post to make their voices count too. But
Yeah.
rewinding to caregiving, I had no clue what I was doing. I didn't really want to be a caregiver. I wasn't prepared. There's no class I think you could take. But I knew that even though doctor said she wouldn't pass due to Parkinson's, in my brain it was like, we'll try everything, but maybe I should spend as much time as I can just in case, because she was getting worse. Also with Parkinson's, it's not just one thing. Some of viewers might know the famous actor Michael J. Fox, who is a hero of mine. I had the honor to meet him 3 or 4 times now. I was with him a few weeks ago in New York at the gala for the Michael
Mhm.
J. Fox, where they raised over $1 billion, not million, $1 billion towards the research, and they have been making good ground. But there's
Yeah.
still no cure today. And the only thing is exercise can slow the progression. But that didn't really help our family or my mother at that point. But so things, the signs, if you don't know, obviously you need to see a movement specialist, a neurologist, but not just a general neurologist. It has to be movement disorder specialist, and a lot of people don't even have one in their state or even their county. So that's another
Mm.
big issue. They have to drive like hours for just to see their doctor. Tremors is a sign, like Mr. Fox unfortunately shows. And by the way, I don't get any money, but if you go see even tonight, I think it's episode 2 of Shrinking, the Apple
Okay.
TV show. Michael J. Fox actually was in it, and he came back. Since it's been like decades since he's done shows, and it's a beautiful show. Harrison Ford and Jason Segel, and it's
Okay.
kind of can make you laugh, but also cry at the same time. So, but that's the first Parkinson's TV show. I know they've covered it, but fully around that topic in the world ever. So it's really important because they're bringing awareness. But also
Yes.
there's things like small handwriting, loss of smell, trouble sleeping. The list goes on. Constipation's a big one no one wants to talk about. Soft or low voice, facial masking, dizziness, hunching over. And there's 5 stages, they believe, to Parkinson's. And the first 3 show signs that someone can still live independently, but stages 4 and 5 is when you might stumble and fall. You need a full-time caregiver or to be in a home. And we swore to my mother we would never put her in a home, but it cost me and my family about $12,000 a month the last year because she didn't sleep and she needed round the clock care, and normal people can't do that. So it was
Mm.
very tough. So being a caregiver, I always say I didn't have Parkinson's, but I do feel like I had secondary Parkinson's, which is a term I'm claiming to coin, which means that I didn't obviously have the diagnosis, but I felt all the effects because I was holding her hand through all this stuff. So, we every day was like one of those games when the whack-a-mole thing where you hit the little mole.
Yeah.
How I felt. So those are some of the things. But you go through anger, you go through frustration. I'm a personality where I have a list and I definitely accomplish everything in my life, but everyone failed and it was very tough. I even have a fun story about Florida just became at the time a medical marijuana license, and I'm a police officer. I was like, I don't think I can get her, but she was really suffering, so I said, I can't not try. Maybe she'll have less pain. But it was like I felt like the movie Mission Impossible walking through the place, even
Yeah.
though it was so that unfortunately didn't work because at the time the doctors don't speak to the distilleries. So either she took one pill because I don't like the smoking part. We tried the
Yeah.
pill, and she either fell over in the wheelchair too much or agitated her more. But that's again another
Just
show. So
just
it was.
trying to figure
Yeah,
out ways to help her feel better. Yeah.
yeah. So that's kind of the fast forward version. But I did a lot of it was tough. The last year was the most difficult, and the delusions and hallucinations didn't help. We had to remove the telephone from her room because she was calling the police. She thought all the aides were harming her. I had to put video cameras in the house because I'm a cop, and thankfully there was nothing bad. But if you're in a home, I couldn't even monitor it. So there's just millions of things. So I wrote the book, A Son's Journey, from Parkinson's disease
Yes.
caregiver to advocate, and that was my first book. I've written 7 now, which I honestly am proud I did them, but it's hard to get awareness for podcasts and for books because it's a specific population. It's just me, so I do this 24/7 for free and voluntary, and we've spent our family's probably donated about $70,000 over the years, and we'd never asked for a penny back.
Yes.
But it's hard when you again see what's happening sometimes on social media and the things that people like and share. But this is something that unfortunately either people have to be shocked or I don't want them to gain it or have a friend or family or community, but it's coming unfortunately to a place near you unless
Yes.
everybody joins in this fight.
Yes. Yes. And you mentioned, and thank you for the background too, for anyone out there listening. Trying to be aware of symptoms and being aware of your health, right? Um, what have you found? Like, it's really to help drive change. It's really about. It seems like a couple things, right? Like raising the awareness and then raising the funds to actually fund the research that will hopefully find a cure.
Yeah, I think every part is important. The biggest interesting thing when in my show, we've had in only a year, I think I have 400 episodes, not because I wanted to, but because everyone inspires me. And I would say I'm burnt out, but I'm still grieving 6 years later. My mother was my best friend. I joke because a lot of people have met me. I've been to many events now and met a lot of the community, which is beautiful. But I am 6'2", 200 pounds, and I'm not, don't look friendly. But this stuff, and I speak, I could talk in front of thousands of people. I'm not shy. But even a little one-on-one like this is emotional because it's still proud to have my mother here. And even during like my son, Eli just turned 9 yesterday, and we had a cute little party, even though it was freezing here. But my mother would have loved to have seen that, and she used to fight, and that's what our newest book, which is not really like a plug, but it's
No, please, please plug it, please.
actually it's called "I Love You, Grandma Sharon." It's about my daughter Brooks and Grandma's days with Parkinson's. When I was struggling, we didn't have it, and also I didn't know what to say even today because my
Oh,
youngest Eli, he's now 9. He was a baby when my mother kind of was getting worse, so I don't think he'll ever remember her. So I have trouble trying to tell my 3 children what happened, but my daughter Brooke was especially closest to my mother. So this book is actually our family pictures, and they turn them AI, and it goes with the story. But you could see the hardest thing about this book is you have to have the progression right because they're aging the character. So you'll see it starts with my mother, who was just not doing tolerably, but she had PD, and my daughter. You can see when she was born. It was
yeah.
one of my favorite days in my mother's life because she had 2 boys and she wanted a girl.
Oh, she
So I
wanted a
remember
girl.
when my mother and when my wife's mother and me had dinner once to tell my mother we're having her first baby, and it was a girl. She was like crying because she could finally dress her up in dolls and buy all.
Yes.
But this is like one of the main pictures you can see. It was my mother.
Yeah.
But so this story is not about me. It's about my daughter, my mother, and how their relationship. How my daughter saw my mother as she was progressing, and finally, unfortunately, to the end. But we do. It is motivational because you can see here. it's our family at a walk. We do a lot of walks, and we're still fighting for her. But the reason this book actually means the most, besides the son's journey, I've done a lot in between. Those are important, but is really again the children. Even today, it's difficult to explain about Parkinson's or what happened to their grandmother. So I'm excited because this came out just a week ago. It's not easy
Oh,
because again we self fund everything, but I just hope somehow it'll get out there in the world. And again, it's not even expensive. It's just hard. I'm even offering a lot of my books completely free, ebook completely free, no cash, because
yeah.
I just wanted to get out there. So if everyone writes me, not the kids' book yet, eventually maybe, but a lot of like my son's journey, my mother's will send a free ebook copy to anyone who writes to me. So at TogetherForSharon.com.
That's well, that's beautiful. I it's funny. My last guest wrote a children's book based off of her experience, and especially when a children's book is inspired by like a real person who and your real family's experience, I think we often forget how do we or we don't know how to explain these these things happening. So like connecting through that story, that's beautiful. I'm going to put a link to it down there as well. um, so you said, and again, I know you're still grieving. It's something that you live with and grow with, and I want to thank you for opening up and coming one on one. I know it's not easy. I know you're in this work every day and pushing and pushing for support and a cure. But when anyone comes and sits down and shares uh, uh, memories of someone they've lost, I know it's not easy. So I just want to thank you again for that.
Yeah.
Um,
I always say if we reach even one person, it's not even a higher goal, but if we just reach one person in the world every day, then we've reached, touched their life for the better, and they make sure that they know they're not alone. And you asked
yeah.
me earlier, one other recommendation, which we didn't have, is literally go to TogetherForSharon.com.
Uh-huh.
A lot of resources, free, no charge for any of it. I've interviewed over 3,000 written interviews with people around the world. So I made a lot of friends, and I mean, unfortunately, Parkinson's doesn't discriminate, and I don't want it to, but people in Africa, India, Spain, Italy are all affected, even Nova Scotia, which is, and even
Wow.
everywhere. So I've somehow been able through social media to reach many people around the world, and
Yes.
that's been a big thing. Also, have a lot of links to all different organizations that offer support that I can because I'm just me. But there's
Yes.
the Michael J. Fox Foundation, the APDA, and the Parkinson's Foundation are major organizations, and if they look it up, they might even have local walks in their state. So there are things out there in support, but it's not always easy to find it. So what I did is again try to put a website to bring it to them again free. We
Yes.
also have been now getting celebrity messages, which isn't easy, but we've had messages from Ozzy Osbourne's son because Ozzy unfortunately just passed due to Parkinson's. We also have Rashida Ali, who's Muhammad Ali's daughter. Also Brett Favre, the legendary quarterback, and also Bernie Kosar. They gave me messages. We have a lot of messages from, if you go to TogetherForSharon.com and click on media, then look for messages of hope. We have over 30 celebrities, and
Wow.
it's been really nice. Leah Thompson from Back to the Future,
Yeah.
so many like I can't remember, but
Yeah.
it's all
Yeah.
again just they're just short messages. One of my favorites was Jennifer Gardner gave me one, which is really incredible, and we donated all the money together to the fires in California, the wildfires. So we're trying hard. It's it's not easy because it's just me. I try to be innovative. There's another thing I didn't announce, and I don't want to jinx it, but been trying a big problem too. The media, it's hard to get them to understand how important this is. So, that's another area I'm hoping to get. But, you're right and you're right. And even politicians, you're right, and you get the crickets. And some days you feel like giving up, but then all of a sudden I see another inspiring person or story. Somebody, a group of four gentlemen who rode around the country to raise money for Parkinson's. And they came on my show, and it was such an honor to have a little moment. But those are the memories and reasons I don't give up and realize
Yes.
even after the lights, camera, and paparazzi leave, even your show today, the conversation has to continue.
Yeah, no, and I can tell you that when you're working to draw awareness to a cause, whatever that cause may be, and you're going day in and day out, and you feel that like, am I really getting anywhere? I'll tell you, that's when, like you said, somebody comes along and you're like, okay, yeah, yeah, like you just, it feels like an uphill battle sometimes, I'm sure, but I think it's moments, shows, doing the books, all the things that you're doing, like together, right? Hopefully that creates that ripple effect, right? And no, I can completely can relate to in a different way, like trying to build something and then like being like, is this going or what am I doing? You know, kind of figuring that out.
Yeah, one of
Who?
my books is actually called "Empty Seat at the Table," and what it was about. And again, it didn't get much out there, but it's
Mm,
out there. And it was about how today I don't have Parkinson's. I'm no longer a caregiver of someone living with Parkinson's. So I'm kind of in a third category, which I feel is really neglected. And even in the big organizations, which I brought up, but didn't get far. I'm somebody who lost a loved one due to Parkinson's. A lot of people don't talk about that, and what happens when you don't talk about or have a seat at the table is that they don't help. They go on with their life, which is fine, but they forget and they move on. Maybe they don't forget, they never forget their loved one, but they don't advocate, and there's nothing wrong with that. But
sure.
I always say I have an empty seat at the table because number one, we no longer have a seat for my mother because of Parkinson's at our table. And number two, I have had issues which we would need a lot more time, and I write about it where people just ignore the people who lost someone. They only want to concentrate, which is nothing wrong with concentrating on someone battling in their families, but you should never forget. I feel there's 20 million people or more who've been affected or lost someone because they lost their battle, but that doesn't mean we don't have a voice or
Yeah.
that we still don't matter. And that's been a big issue that still exists. It's almost like, you could bring all these people back into the conversation and be so much stronger, but there's nothing in my experience. Thankfully now, people are learning about me and know my goal is just to cure, nothing else. And we do have exposure now. We've had almost every CEO of every Parkinson's organization on the show, which was not easy. But
Yeah.
I just wish everybody understood that there's nothing I want, and they understand now, but except people to work together. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm always shocked when you write to someone and if they're private and not out there, that's no problem. But I'll have someone who's out there on all these shows and things but won't come on ours. And it's baffling because my whole show, if you see, is just 10, 15 minutes, but I'm promoting them because they're inspiring me and I want to inspire the world. So we still have an issue too, and it's not everyone, it's maybe 1%, but we still have issue with some individuals or organizations that just don't really work together. And I still am kind of not sure why.
Mm, yeah. It's like with media and all of the rise of podcasts and everything, it's like let's use these channels to talk about the things that really matter. Like not that, you can have Instagram food channels and things like art and like that's great, right? But why not give these causes and these feelings and this adversity that people around the world are going through, this is the place to talk about it, right? To that draws people in, that gets people to actually take action, that actually moves the needle. But it's quite frustrating when you know people are kind of focused on the wrong things, right?
I always am very honest and nothing to hide, and I encourage to Oprah if she's listening to come on Brianna show and with me. But
Oh,
people like Oprah and Tamron Hall and all the good Good Morning America. I've
yeah,
written to them all, and they just don't respond. And then I see other stories, and Parkinson's, unfortunately, again, is one of the fastest growing neurological diseases in the world. And I don't want to say the word shake because we that's what Parkinson's individuals like my
yeah,
mom did,
yeah,
but I almost feel like I have to like kind of get them awake to the day. It's just very hard, and it's like Katie Couric and so many people out there that could put a huge light, and maybe they have with others, but I haven't seen that kind of story, or even in my first book, about my mother,
yeah,
son's journey. There's no one else, and I always challenge everyone listening to write me if I'm wrong, but I haven't ever seen a son who lost their mother due to Parkinson's, a book about it anywhere in the world, and I
yeah.
couldn't also. I had to self-publish because a lot of the publishers just don't care.
Right, right. Yeah. It's well, I mean, it looks like you have certainly not let anything
Yeah.
stop you as far as like the impact you're making. And I just want to commend you. Like, I know you're not in it for this at all. I can feel that from you. And, but I do think that you deserve some, some applause, at least from me. And I want to give that to you for really just diving in and like what you're doing has the ability and is already really affecting people in this community.
So I would send that back to you because it's individuals like you who give us the spotlight for a moment or the time and realize it's important. And so I also thank you for that. And, again, without voices like you or support, then I really couldn't make a difference. So, and also, I don't think I would do all this or be the man I am today if it wasn't for my mother and the things she taught me and the sacrifices she had. So, again, I kind of joke with my wife and family and say, law school, I almost quit. Police academy, literally almost quit. I studied for the bar in the academy. That was interesting class. And then the
Wow.
PhD took 7 years. I almost quit that. At every single stage that I walked on to graduate, my mother, I have a picture of her next to me. And that's, the tough part and even hard to still talk about because she can't be there for my daughter and for her grandkids, which is what she actually told me that she was fighting for to be at my daughter Brooke's wedding one day. And I only regret I have, ironically, is back 5, 6 years ago, no one had podcasts. I didn't even have the technology. I wish I could have done a show with her for a few years, but not about Parkinson, just about stories and life, because
Yeah.
I could have had all those incredible clips, like of us arguing Sunday about what restaurant to order from, because we would fight over what food to get. And now Sunday comes and it's just, quiet. It's not the same. So that's the one thing I wish I had. It wouldn't have been possible till today, but I would have dreamt of having. And it's tough because I have a small family and I can't get any of them to come on the show. But it's not, we don't have many of our family. Now we're growing because of my kids, but it would have
Yes.
been fun to do a, show with her.
Mm. Well, I can tell you that no doubt, no doubt she is though you don't have that recorded, I will say like even you just saying those memories and the book and just what you're doing and like how you are advocating. I mean, it seems like you've been helping people that are struggling kind of your whole life with police work, with this, with I mean, victim advocacy. It's a really it takes a really special person to do what you do. And I know I'm not I don't I'm just showering you with compliments, but I think that you are probably in the grind trying to do so much that it can be easy for you to forget how much you've done. You know what I mean?
And they
Um,
say there's two rules, and I've broken them both. One is, yeah, and I recommend everyone out there. I'm a hypocrite, I guess, but take care of yourself first as the first one as a caregiver, because then you can't really take care of
wow.
your loved one. And number two is even as an advocate, I do this 24/7, which is not smart, but I just it pains me to see other people, battling it. But you're not supposed to do this what I'm doing, so it's not. I even joke with my kids because they see I was, doing three careers like police, law, and you're only supposed to do one. So I worry about them in the future. But you don't have to do all the stuff I do. You can be your own person. Everyone has
Yeah.
their journey. Even just one thing, one post a day for free, you could change the world. So that's the biggest message I think I might have.
It's a beautiful message. And I think, like, just to kind of bring it in here, everything that you've been talking about, the thread through that, I think, is community through adversity, right? Like, whether you're advocating for victims in Florida, whether you're working with you are a reserve police officer now with Together for Sharon and your advocacy, all of that thread is community, is connecting through that pain, right? And like you're very honest, like being honest about what you're going through. If you're struggling as a caretaker, if you need help, if you that there are resources thanks to organizations like yours and all the organizations you're partnering with, you know?
Yeah. We only touched on the surface because there's so much, but like I wrote another book, which again, I don't want to write books. I don't even want to do a lot more. I just wish we found a cure and then I would be done. But
Yes.
until then, I can't. And I wrote one for my heart, which was about the lack of awareness in law enforcement throughout the country, dealing with people with Parkinson's or encountering. And what that was actually more. I put my PhD hat on, cap on, and I did a book. It's two sections really. One is about law enforcement if people don't understand how you become an officer, but the opposite is for police. So given 5 lectures at my own department, and they've been incredible support. It's hard to get it to the others. So again, I hope everyone out there pick up a copy or email me for a free ebook copy of Policing and Parkinson's Disease. But if everyone listening, and even one person in every state would try their police department and urge them to learn about Parkinson's. Right now, a lot of the research I found, I don't want to kind of give away unless they read the book, because it's
Sure.
a lot of interesting things. But a lot of people with Parkinson's fear the police, which shouldn't be, because they're worried about what they would say or do if they're having a tremor or their medicine
Yeah.
isn't kicked in. The other thing is, I'd say most police never heard of Parkinson's, and at least in Palm Beach County, and when I was in the academy in Miami-Dade County, they mentioned the words Alzheimer's and dementia, but Parkinson doesn't exist. So again, we don't expect police to know everything about everything, but even just knowing the words. So my dream would be, I try to reach out to representatives to have every academy in Florida and everywhere in the country, because it applies to every state and every organization, to add the words Parkinson's disease. That's it, nothing else. If they just did that, we would be okay, but they haven't done it, and I don't really know at this point. It's like you hit a wall, and you just got to keep trying, but I have to
Yeah.
move forward. But my department bought 300 books, donated to the entire city fire, to the community, so that people are aware now. And if an officer, encounters someone, they might think a moment before. Also, sadly and positively, from sadness comes positivity. But they just passed something called the Blue Envelope Law, and it's spreading very positively around the country. That was created for autism, so people with autism who encounter police. Sadly, I believe in my research it came about because somebody lost their life in an encounter. And I feel that that's going to happen, unfortunately, with Parkinson's until somebody does something. And I don't want to be on, Oprah or any of those shows talking about this when it could have been prevented. But unfortunately, in my view, this is just me, not Brienne, but or the
Yeah.
show is until something sadly happens badly. That's what it takes, in our country before movement occurs and people do something about it.
Yeah. There's so many there's so many aspects to Parkinson's disease after talking to you. And before I read about it and knew the basics, but when after talking to you, I'm realizing with Parkinson's in particular, the the person suffering, there's so many different situations. It's not just kind of getting them, okay, make sure you get to your doctor's appointment and take your meds. It's a lot of life changes and a lot of adjustments and life changes for the people around them. But what you're working to do, obviously, the goal is to get that cure, right? In the meantime, while we're working towards that, it's like you're trying to offer, which I think is amazing, the education to all these different types of people, organizations. You're trying to look at all the situations that sounds like that your mom went through, or some that you were just aware of, and you're trying to provide the education to prevent that, or teach people the coping skills to handle it, right?
And the science is interesting because although I'm not an that's the only degree I didn't do is MD, my father is.
Yeah,
But
hey, you never know.
Uh, I'm
No,
not.
I'm just kidding.
I tried picking up a book about political science because I do teach that. And I'm like, I can't be a student again, but
No, no.
I do learn every day from every student I meet. But the problem is interesting. It's not even like we all say cure, cure, but we can't even get to a cure. First step is that science and research has to figure out how to stop the progression for people battling today. So if
Ah,
they could stop it, and then maybe even kind of in a way reverse it, to when that would be the two first things. Only then can we even get to a cure. So that's why it's important too to mention, which we did, and another book we have on sports and exercise, because that's the only there's no cure. But we wrote a book, and this was an interesting book. I don't want this to become the book show, but
no, I mean, when
this
you've
book.
written 8 books, you got to talk about them.
This one
So,
was interesting because what I had in mind, it's not as easy because I won't say what company that they don't like what I did, but so I had an idea. My mother struggled. and she liked sports, but certain ones she couldn't do. But guess what? She couldn't do one, so she kind of just gave up, never tried. So what we did is we put a book together. It's called Sports and Exercise Slowing the Progression of Parkinson. I gathered 20 people who are battling Parkinson's and advocates around the world, had them each do a chapter on a different sport. And what I was trying to, and also they put on Amazon themselves and they gained all the money. I didn't accept anything, which was not easy because, again, just a disclaimer, this is not, again, Brianne. I'm saying this about Amazon. But they didn't understand what I was doing because they thought, well, how could you have 20 authors? But my goal was that they would all be able to fund it and get medication money or help support them that
Yeah.
want the money. So we cover about 30 different sports, from bowling to ping pong to rock steady boxing to to all different sports, just to show from the voices of those battling it that just because one sport doesn't work doesn't mean there's not another one. You can't give up. You have to find something. So hopefully, again, someday we're actually working on getting that one ebook for free too. So
We gotta we gotta help with that. No, no, your goal, your heart, you want to get it out there, But
yeah,
these things do
I
cost
joke
money.
if I win the lottery, I'll be sending a copy around to every hospital, every physical therapy, all the medical world for free, that I can't afford it. And I
See,
don't
that's how
play.
you
I
know
don't
you're
play the lottery, so I don't think that's gonna
well, that's how
happen.
you know you're cool when you're like when your first thought about winning the lottery is how can I help other
Yeah.
people? Like because you've I think and please correct me if I'm wrong, when you've seen the types of adversity that you've seen, I think probably throughout you've seen with law enforcement, with all sorts of situations and people you've met and people you've taught. Um, Adversity, I think, and loss like this, it changes you, right? You seem like you have a desire to help that is just a core part of who you are. After it probably was before, but after losing your mom, that really became your life's work, right? Helping people.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get into a lot, but a lot of what a reserve is I went through the full police academy, but I never got paid. So I actually did it in 2006. I actually put a vest, a gun on, didn't get a penny. Could have been, bad stuff could happen, and no insurance, nothing. So, my mother never liked that, honestly, and I understood why, especially now. But, like I said, I really wanted to, I didn't do it for anything but to help the community. I always said the same thing with Parkinson's. I almost kind of correlate them, sadly, but because a lot of the Parkinson's population I feel is forgotten, and so are victims, although it's a different field. But I just wanted one victim, even if I could change their life, to know people care. That was it. But putting on a vest, gun, going through a full academy, paying yourself, and then opening yourself up to very bad stuff, and it's obviously a lot of good too, for free is not easy. And I don't talk a lot about it, but I've never had a penny. They actually was supposed to give me $1 for every year I was at it, but I would donate it back. But that was an interesting career, and I would do it again, but maybe not in certain areas or states because it's happening. But
Ah,
again, you have to. Sometimes you need to give sacrifice to help others, and that was one thing I'm still most proud of. Even though, again, very not the smartest thing to do, I guess. But and my mother, again, she didn't like it. Every time I put everything on the vest and went out, she was worried I wasn't going to come back. Imagine too, and the shocking thing is I didn't have any medical insurance, so something happened. Who knows? But thankfully, it didn't.
hmm. Well, George, I know we can spend lots of time, hours and hours, and I think your podcast as well, on actually diving into all of these really, really important issues and facets of Parkinson's disease and the people that it affects. So, again, I want to encourage everybody in the show notes, the links to your podcast, to all of your books right down below, your Instagram as well. And, George, before we go, and again, this has been really, really educational and helpful for me. Is there anything that you just want to kind of wrap up with and leave the audience with? And this will be the first of many connections. You're now in the Adventures and Adversity family, so like you're gonna get sick of me, but just to tie this one
Actually,
up. Yeah.
I always say that to my co-host, my Margaret. She said never, but I like, cause every time we see right now in Pennsylvania, they're actually finally getting to Congress to ban Paraguay. It's the first state, so and whenever I see an article or something, I contact the legislator. I don't contact Margaret. I contact her after and say, I'm trying to get these people on the show. It's very hard, to get government people. I've been said no by senators, Congress. I
Oh,
tell them
yes.
their own constituents are battling Parkinson. They can't give me 3 minutes. Like, it's shocking, and I don't want to continue because we could, like you said, go on for hours. But in my book, Empty Seat at the Table, I actually, and I say his name, but I wrote to my two senators at the time, Rick Scott and Marco Rubio. Rick Scott took the time, came on my show. It was like a dream. Imagine having a U.S. senator do the show for Parkinson. Unfortunately, Marco Rubio, again, I don't know if it was him, but his staff, he didn't do a good job. And I put it in the book, and I don't mind the shooter. He's a public figure. I can get
Yep.
into defamation. But his staff actually wrote me and said that Parkinson is literally in the book from their email. It's not really as important to them right now. World matters. Or I wrote back and said, my mother matters. And so do all the people battling today. And that was really sickening and really, there's different people in the world, and there's nothing wrong with how people react. But if you slam a door in my face, I'll usually try to find another way in or kick it back open because you can't just give up. Again, we can't bring my mother back, but we can stop this for others battling, and that's really why I do it. I get a lot of weird things sometimes saying, why am I doing it? Because again, I can't bring her back, and this is too good to be true. But in 2026, it's sad that somebody just wants to help people and still gets interesting. But whenever I wrap up my show, I always leave everyone with this, and this is to Brianne, to you, and to your viewers. We love you, we support you, we care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I, along with Brianne, will advocate for you, and I feel together our voices are so much stronger. And I always wrap up with saying I'm just getting started, because although I've been doing it for 6 years, on those days, whether it's politics, everyone's own health, or just the weather today, or whatever it is, or maybe again some days it's like I can't bring her back, my mother, so why even keep doing this? We've spent so much, and my family sometimes even is upset because I do so much. I'll miss out. My mother would have laughed if you met her and said, George, don't do all this, spend time with your family, but she knows I wouldn't just give up. But every time I meet someone like you and your audience, or somebody inspiring to me doing something, it pushes me to realize that we can never give up till there's a cure at everybody's doorsteps around the world.
Well, beautifully said, George. Beautifully said. And I'm honored to be standing next to you. I am now, anyone who comes on my show, their cause becomes a part of my cause, honestly. Like, really honored. I, I think what you're doing is incredible. And yeah, you are just a shining example of, like you said, how to not give up adversity. And I just think it's a beautiful thing what you're doing. So,
Thank you, and thanks for again to the listeners for allowing us the time to talk about this important and really fast growing disease throughout the nation and the world. So I feel through each voice we can make a difference. Contact your legislators about banning things like paraquat, the things they put in our foods, the landscaping, just things that I feel we're not doing enough about, and together they'll listen. But me sending a letter every month for 15 people, like kind of sometimes I'll break through, get one response or others,
yeah.
but I feel if we all thought of them together, they would listen. So thank you again.
Yeah. Amen to that. Well, with that, please take a look at the beautiful resources in the show notes. We want to be a part of finding a cure. And until next time, George, we will be in touch.